Okay, so at the end of my last video, I said that this manga was really struggling to hold on to its 8.0 rating. And I almost dropped it down to a 7.5, but I let it keep its 8. And I said I was putting my faith in Q Hayashida to pull this through. And I'm happy to say that my faith was rewarded. And I'm not going to lie, that reading this manga was starting to feel a little bit like reading a Scooby-Doo chase scene. But not anymore. I mean, there is like real legitimate like forward momentum now. I mean, not that it wasn't moving forward. It's always been moving forward and changing and evolving. I've even said that in the past. So it never felt like it was stagnant, but it just felt like... I don't know how to explain it. Anyway, Volume 14 starts off with Aikawa killing himself, and the professor coming face to face with the leader of the Cross Eyes. Wait, did I miss something? We see that Nikaido, Risu, and Asu are now all together, and Risu's struggling with curse and everything. And at this point, Nikaido and Asu are keeping certain things from him. And then we get a real quick shot of the Cross Eyes leader collecting devils. Okay, now... Asu's going to give Nikaido a helmet that when she puts it on, it kind of sends her into what looks like either a nightmare or a hallucination. Actually, to be quite honest, I thought it was a nightmare at first because I'm so used to those at this point. But she ends up running into some, I don't know, slime jelly creature and is going to have to fight it. And she's ultimately saved by Kaiman. Eventually, she's going to figure out that this isn't a real place, and this creature that she's been running from the whole time is basically her fears that she's been running from her whole life. And she comes to the realization that she's going to have to face the creature, in effect, facing her fears. So she faces and kills the jelly monster, comes out of the hallucination, and suddenly she has devil horns now. At this point, Asu also admits that he knew exactly what was going to happen. He did it on purpose, and he literally gave her no warning. Which, way to go, Asu. That's such a nice guy. Also, the helmet's a test that they use for devils, which is why she grew the devil horns. But he's pretty sure she's not going to turn into a devil or anything. Anyway, at this point, Nikaido's going to go into the bathroom, and she's ultimately going to explode, and all of her smoke is going to come out of her and come together to create the ultimate form of the time box, which in turn is going to blow up the entire building that they're in and cause an explosion so large that basically everybody in the sorcerer's world is going to see it. Also, I just want to point out that this might be my favorite version of Nikaido yet. Like, she seems to constantly, like, every volume have, like, a new outfit or a new disguise or a new something that she's rocking. And for some reason, this version, which is basically just her in, like, a tank top and a pair of underwear with, like, hockey pads or something, and devil horns. But it might be my favorite look so far. Also, she gets all these shots here where it looks like she's getting ready to go Super Saiyan or something, and it's just really cool. Anyway, now she uses the box to go back in time and saves her friend. Meanwhile, over at the underground hideout of En's group, they're preparing to go on a mission, and one of them is going to have to break into En's mansion and try to steal back En's head devil thing and figure out what their plans are overall. And the one that they choose for this vital mission is Fujita. Also, we get a real quick shot of the professor, and he's going to wake up and he's going to sneak off away from Haru because he's now going to go out looking for the Cross Eyes boss. Speaking of the Cross Eyes boss, he's out on a killing spree, killing all the sorcerers he can. He's basically collecting devils and smoke and anything else, but he's just on a spree right now. When they all run into the owner of the meat pie shop, clearly the boss and the Cross-Eyes, the boss is going to tear through the meat pie people like they were tissue paper, right? Hell no! Those meat pie fuckers are tough. I mean, they go round and round for a while. Eventually, they're ultimately going to figure out that the boss's blood is flammable. They're going to light his ass on fire, and then they're going to stick a cleaver through his head, effectively killing the Cross Eyes boss. The meat pie people. Anyway, his head then falls off and kind of dangles there, and it reveals that he has many heads, not just one. Eventually, the one that replaces it is Aikawa's head, and he's even going to take on Aikawa's personality, even calling Fukuyama by name and telling Fukuyama to hit him, turning him into a meat pie. At this point, the Cross-Eyes pretty much get the hell out of there and then go about trying to figure out how to fix the boss. And of course, they ultimately do end up fixing the boss and turning him from a meat pie back into a person, but when they do that, he turns back into Aikawa instead of the boss. And also, while this is happening, we get to see a vision that we've seen before many times, but this time when we see it, Aikawa asks, "Is this how it ends?" And he gets a response that says, "Ends? No. What's important is how it began." And even this part is starting to feel like we're getting somewhere, right? Because like I said, this is a vision that we've seen multiple times as the run of this manga has gone on, and we just kind of get, oh, it's mysterious. But now it's mysterious, but it's feeding us information that feels like we're starting to move forward with it. Anyway, at this point, the Cross-Eyes then tie him up. And this is the point when the professor finally catches up to him, and he comes in and he sees him and he calls him I. Coleman, which then sends him into another flashback where we see pretty much that same torso-less figure, but this time he has a torso, and we can see that it's I from the past, complete with a little 8-ball cap and everything. Also in this section, we get like a double spread art page of a face, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first double page spread of art that we've ever gotten in Dorohedoro, and it doesn't quite open right because it's in one of these stupid little paperbacks, but God, do I love a good double page spread of art in a manga. Blam and Berserk were crushing it with some of those big double page spreads, and I don't think I've gotten one yet from Q Hayashida unless I'm mistaken. And please, Q, give me more, because I love your art and I love a good double page spread. I think comic books called them splash pages. I don't know what manga calls them, but damn, give me more of that. Anyway, this is going to send Aikawa into a fit, and his head's going to fall off, and then it will be replaced by the dead one, the one that's been cleaved in half. And when all this happens, his metal plate's going to fall out. The professor's going to see the metal plate, and this will ultimately confirm that he is actually I. Coleman from back in the day, which we already knew. It had been hinted at heavily, but it hadn't been confirmed until right now. Now, the body's going to drag itself across the floor into some creepy hideout made of heads, all the heads he's been stealing from the sorcerers over a period of time. And we see a giant skin suit that he has made from the skin of the sorcerers whose heads he's been collecting. Which, of course, gets the professor super excited, and the professor comes up to him and he says, "So, tell me what you're trying to become." Next thing we know, it looks like Aikawa's head is back instead of the cleaver head, and the professor and Johnson are suddenly dead on the floor. We're literally just now getting back to day 0. That was literally like a volume and a half that it took us to go from 16 days ago to now. Anyway, he hides from the Cross-Eyes when they look for him real quick, and this is where we see him kill himself. You know that scene that started volume 14 and now we're halfway through volume 15? Yeah, that one. And now a word from our sponsors. Okay, so now it looks like we're going to get a flashback again of I, this time coming face to face with Aikawa. And it looks like then he turns into Aikawa, and that's all we get. But I'm assuming eventually, as time goes on, we're going to ultimately end up getting more context to this flashback as well, because that seems to be how these go. We get a little quick tease, and then we'll get a little bit more, and then we'll get a big reveal. So just kind of tuck that one away, because it'll probably come back around. And right then, coinciding with everything else that's happening right now, it suddenly starts to rain in the sorcerer's world, which it never does. And remember, these people are hurt by the rain, and this is going to mess up everybody down there. I mean, all of the sorcerers are really screwed up by the rain, especially En's group, because they're underground. Except for Shin, because he's half human. But anyway, Haru's going to show up, rescue the professor, and then one of the devils we've seen before pops up on the page and says,
"It's finally begun."
What, might I ask, has finally begun? Could you explain a little bit? Please, sir, elaborate for me. Oh, you're not going to? Okay. At this point, Nikaido, Risu, and Asu all jump through a door and escape into the hole. And Fujita shows up right as the boss gets up with all of his heads exposed so Fujita gets to see it. Then the boss gets inside of his massive skin suit thing, and then we get another shot of the devil guy saying, this is what he's waited centuries for. Meanwhile, the rain just keeps making everything worse and the sorcerers are gonna have to find a way out. Shin, luckily, isn't affected by the rain, so he's going to be able to go around and gather up all of the members of N's group and create a door and get them all out of the sorcerer's world and back into the hole. The Cross Eyes try and do the same thing, but they can't get the boss through the door because his suit's too big, but eventually they'll get out too. Now that everybody's escaped to the hole from the sorcerer's world, and we're all back there now, we're going to see that Nikaido can no longer make smoke at all. She literally used every last bit of her smoke to build the time box thing. And now she's just effectively not really magical anymore. All of it is stored in that box. And when they open the box, they see that there are 5 cartridges filled with smoke, one of which has been all used up from when she went back in time to save her little friend, effectively telling us that she has 4 more cartridges of smoke and 4 more times that she can use her powers, or 4 more times to go back in time, before she essentially can't do anything anymore. We have a very set number and a limited amount of times that we can use this, which actually gives a real set mechanic to what she can do and a real set deadline. There's going to be stakes that get added due to this. There's going to be strategies and consequences that are ultimately going to end up being implemented because of this. This is a real nice narrative choice. I really like it. I feel like this took her ability and really turned it into something that's going to work wonderfully for this story. Anyway, at this point, Risu's asking if they can use some of the magic to take him back in time, at which point he realizes that they've been lying to him for a while now, and he gets mad and he ends up telling her to keep her smoke, and he storms off. Just in time for him to get into a fight with some thugs, and he lets Curse loose. And just then, Nikaido walks back up and says, you know what, Risu? Come on, buddy. Let's go back in time. The end. And right there, that'll be cartridge number 2. That'll leave us 3 more. Well, let's start the countdown of Nikaido's magic and how many times she's going to be able to go back and fix something. Maybe it'll get to the point where she needs to go fix something and there's nothing left. I don't know. Who knows? We're just going to have to wait and see. But this is a step up. I was on the verge of getting bored with this manga on the last 2 volumes. And like I said, I put my faith in Q just to pull this through. And damn, if she didn't do it. The second things started to feel like they were going in circles. She said, no, we're not. We're going over here when we're doing this. And now it's time for this to really barrel through. And I was actually looking at the books on the bookshelf here. And this is the point where they start to get a little bit thicker and a little bit thicker and a little bit thicker. So that also tells me that at this point is where she really shoots in the I'm hoping. But I feel like this is where she really shoots in the direction that she's ready to go, barreling to the end, and really had drive and focus and knew where she was going, which is why it feels like it's going somewhere, and which is also why it would explain why they start to get thicker, because she just has to tell a certain story at this point. I don't know, I could be talking crazy, but I was happy. I won't say it was good enough to be like a 9 out of 10, but this one's definitely going to pop back up to an 8.5. I definitely had more fun with these 2 volumes than I did the last 2 volumes. Anyway, everybody, as always, the link for my Patreon is in the description below. The link for my Discord is in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.